President Trump promises a bright future for U.S. manufacturing, there is trouble at the top of one of America's most famous manufacturers. It is GE, General Electric, and the chief executive, John Flannery, has been pushed out after barely a year on the job. The announcement came with a side of bleak financial news, a terrible profit warning, and a writing down in the tens of billions of dollars on the power side of the business. GE shares surged at the start of trading. They were up as much as 12% in one case. They're now just up around about 8%. You can see the last bit of tick over in after-hours trading. However, that is still down off 50% over the last year. Now, the results of the Flannery turnaround plan, which have failed to keep or to impress investors. Flannery's ouster gives him the shortest tenure of any of the GE chief executives. Now, there's only been 6 of them in all, the most famous of which was had maybe Ralph Cordner at the beginning, but probably the most famous, of course, is Jack Welch from 1981 to 2001. Now, GE was often described as the house that Jack built. Well, if it's that house that he built up until 2018, it was also the house that Jeff Immelt and John Flannery spent most of their time trying to dismantle to keep the company together. In other words, the strategy, Welch built it up, Immelt and Flannery had to pull it apart. The breakup of GE has been just about everywhere. Today, GE will spin off its healthcare business, and it's selling a stake in the oil and gas company Baker Hughes that it only bought recently. That's gone. Yesterday, it said goodbye to its distributed power business, which generates power in remote areas. It was a part of its core business. Gone. As for the other parts of GE, it sold off its century-old rail division some months ago. No longer will its big engines be delivering goods across the United States, and it has yet to find a buyer for its light bulb unit, which, of course, was originally started by Thomas Edison. They invented the light bulb, and now it's on its way out. GE has already got rid of NBC Universal, the television network, and its appliance business. Remember, GE was in the fridges and the stoves were in every home in America, and much of GE capital has all but gone too. What's left of GE? What's left? It will focus on aviation, power, and renewable energy. So that was then, this is now. Who knew that Flannery was going to go so quickly? Art Hogan is chief market strategist at B. Riley FBR. Have they been too quick to get rid of Flannery? I mean, he's got a strategy. He's only been there a year. It's going to take time to work in.
Yeah, Richard, that's a really tough call, and it is one of those things where it's not surprising to see the market have a reaction whatsoever on different news from GE. You know, giving Flannery such a short leash and just about a year at the helm to turn the ship around, that's got a lot of work to do and a lot of things to get right, as you just went through at the beginning of the segment. I think it's much more about, hey, we're bringing someone in from the outside, someone who was successful at Danaher, somebody that can operate this company with a fresh set of eyes and take on this monumental task of piecing together what's left and what can actually be high margin business. No easy task that, but right now it's, you know, in the eyes of investors and certainly in the eyes of the board, they said we had an internal replacement for Jeff Immelt and we don't like it.
Do you think that they will continue selling off, for example, the medical, the MRI business and all the other bits, the light bulb? I mean, they haven't managed to find a buyer for that. Do you think that strategy will continue? It always seemed very strange to sell off the highly profitable high-tech medical division.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I think what they need to do is know what it is that's going to work for the next 20 years, not what's going to work for the next 4 quarters. And I think that's the problem. Looking at this and saying, okay, we made a couple of terrible bets, GE Capital at the wrong time, getting into energy at the wrong time, perfectly mistaking those 2 significant plays, now unwinding them, perhaps getting out of their Baker Hughes business at the exact wrong time as energy is rebounding. So I think what they need is much more of a 5-year plan and not a 5-quarter plan. And I hope that's why they're bringing in someone who successfully reinvigorated a company like Danaher to look at this and say, okay, let's not think about what's happening next quarter. Let's think about what's happening in the next 3 years.
Who's the villain in the piece in all of this? Jack Welch for building a conglomerate when conglomerates were fashionable. Jeffrey Immelt from spending a small fortune on various acquisitions which didn't necessarily perform according to plan. He was CEO for 16 years. And then Flannery, well, you can hardly say Flannery. I mean, he came in and he tried and did his best. But of the two, who, because I see quote after quote saying what you're looking at is 15 years of bad decisions. That would suggest Immelt is the culprit.
Well, yeah, Jack Welch did a fantastic job when he could. Remember, when Jack Welch was the CEO, he put this company together. The Dow Jones Industrial Average went from about 900 to 9,000, so the market was at his back. He was part of that move in the Dow Jones, obviously with a 4,000% move in the stock in his time frame. But to your point, conglomerates were in favor in his time frame, and they came out of favor, and Immelt had to put this thing together, make some smart decisions, and he probably made two of the worst decisions in the history of corporate America, getting into things at the exact wrong time. So can you imagine getting into energy exactly when the bottom falls out of the energy?
You know,
getting into GE Capital right when the financial crisis hits.
You know, there's only one thing of which I think you might agree with me, and this is this, Art, as we finish. You and I have been around long enough to know that conglomerates were in fashion. They are out of fashion, and someday the wheel will turn and they will be back in fashion. Just got to wait, really, haven't you?
Indeed, I agree with you, and we'll see. I'd like to see it happen sooner rather than later, but right now they're not in fashion, and you got to find the pieces of the puzzle that make sense together and things that are going to make sense over the next 3 years.
Art Hogan, good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us. The other